going on, guys? How are you? Welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today we're gonna have a look at another offering from Cadisen, and more specifically the C8213. This is another watch from AliExpress in case you haven't heard of Cadisen. I'm pretty sure the model number doesn't mean anything to you because most of us don't really follow these, and I'm not sure if there is any sort of pattern behind the naming. Now, I've said it before, but for us people that love a bargain and a well-spec'd watch and don't really mind the borrowed design or the brand name and don't really mind spending some time on AliExpress, there is gold there, and some brands like Cadisen in this case that have been doing this for a very long time will give you a watch that has all the specs that I've mentioned above. The funny thing is that Cadisen could have been that one brand that had started this crazy hobby in the first place. What I mean by that is that probably most of us have had experience with Cadisen back in the day when Jody from Just One More Watch was doing videos on gold nuggets that he found on GearBest or AliExpress. But that in its own is another story for another day. But what is so special about this? Well, it's cheap, it's well spec'd, and when I say it's well spec'd, I mean it features the NH35 movement, and at the time of filming this is $76 according to the AliExpress listing. Well, at the time of filming it's 36 millimeters, and oh, I almost forgot, which is, you know, it still has to have some negatives, it's a homage. I mean, but I didn't say it was going to be perfect. As usual, I'll have links down below into the description box next to that like and subscribe button if you want to purchase, or also if you want to check them out. Now, enough of the waffle, let's get into it and see how good this thing is. So we see a lot of watches on AliExpress, many of them homages, and many of them are actually based on the Great Submariner. But as great as these are, sometimes we need something that we want to beat around and still feel like we got a good deal, and sometimes that isn't that obvious. Well, in this case, the Cadisen is pretty obvious, but something that is more approachable, let's say from a size perspective, that doesn't feel and look like the Submariner. Let's put it that way. So with that in mind, let's go through the dimensions. We have a case diameter of 36 millimeters, a thickness of 12 millimeters, a lug width of 20 millimeters, and a lug to lug of 45/48 if you take the male end links into consideration. It's 36 and it wears more like a 38, which in this case is more like a positive, I guess. Also, I love the fact that the end links point downwards. They hug the wrist quite nicely, which gives it a lovely visual balance. Now, it might sound like I'm over analyzing this given the price, but trust me, after having so many of these watches, you start noticing these small things. What's it like wearing it for a few days straight? It's just easy to live with it day to day. It fits under the sleeve of a shirt, and it's a perfect all-rounder, I think. To revert back to the old days of comparing watches, this just brings back to the basics, and it's a perfect watch to get to know the sizes and style you like. Speaking of getting back to the basics, let's talk about the case. First of all, the finishing is nothing fancy, it's just safe. And let's be clear here, I'll try and be a bit more realistic about my expectations, because at the end of the day, this is a little under $100 and we should treat it accordingly. If it does over deliver, that's fine, but I won't be too harsh on it if it doesn't. And it doesn't have to, it's still under $100. The finishing is once again safe. Polished on the bezel and the side of the case and brushed on the top of the lugs. Didn't over deliver here, but they didn't disappoint either. One thing that doesn't sit quite well with me, and you have to take this with a pinch of salt, because at the end of the day, these things, I believe, these small things make a huge difference if you put them all together at the end of the day. The bezel is a bit thicker than I would have liked, which doesn't really ruin anything, but it just takes too much of that dial for me, considering the fact that this is still a 36mm watch. When I say with a pinch of salt, I mean it. The only way you would have seen this is maybe if I would have put it next to a San Martin, which costs twice as much and has that sort of visual balance that I was looking for. Can I live with it? Absolutely. Remember, this is still $76. And also, I almost forgot, at the 3 o'clock, we have a screw down crown with a 100-meter stated water resistance. This genuinely brings me back to the old days when we truly appreciated a bargain. Now, you don't find these things anymore, and they're quite rare because everything jumps up in price and watches are not what they used to be anymore. Now, let's just swiftly move along. The dial is covered by a flat piece of sapphire crystal, which has a few layers of air coating. The one that we have here is the black version, but it comes with two more options, I believe, a gold and a sort of a Tiffany blue. The layout is pretty self-explanatory, and when I say that, I mean that it takes you exactly to the watch that this is inspired from. But Cadisen put their own little twist on it just to make it a little less obvious. So in short, you have all applied indices with a very familiar 369 layout with the applied Cadisen logo at the 12-hour marker. Below that, we have painted in letter Cadisen and automatic in white. Below the pinion, we have the same kind of font at the 6 with 10 atmospheres, waterproof, and a sapphire. Also, if you have a look at the readout, you can see some engraving on the inside, which is cool, but I think it's totally unnecessary, but still does over deliver when you think about it, because you're getting a lot more than you ask. It still shows what they can do with $76. Before I start nitpicking what is wrong with the dial, let me just mention the twist that I was talking about, and some of you may have already seen it. And yes, I am referring to the hands. We're expecting Mercedes hands, and to be quite honest, I had the same expectation. Well, talk about a sense of observation. But I think those hands kind of set it apart, considering we're all familiar with design, catalog, where this came from, and to be honest, I just think it's another small positive, not a one-to-one homage. And one last small little comment before I move on. The only thing that isn't written on the dial is Seiko NH35, and you will have a full list of specs there. Now, would you have a problem with that if you spend $76 on a watch? I think you have to be crazy too. So forgive me for keep saying this, but every single time I have a weird comment like this, I still have to remember that this is $76. And also, let us not forget about the loom, which does the job, but don't expect it to take Z-Loss anytime soon in that department. Let's talk about the movement. Powering this, we have what I believe is the reason why you should buy this, and it is the Seiko NH35. I'll put the specs on the screen. There is not much to say apart this from the fact that this particular example is getting an accuracy of plus 5 seconds per day out of the box, which is better than a lot of other watches that I have. And also, I should mention that since we don't have a date complication here, and the movement does have a date complication, we have a ghost position when we turn the crown. But am I particularly bothered? No. To get a watch with this movement at this price for AliExpress standards and in this specs and in today's market, I think this is completely unheard of. And I will also say, very well done, Cadisen. Now lastly, as we usually do, let's touch on the bracelet. In my eyes, this could be made out of paper because I wouldn't be specifically bothered by it. We have oyster style, as you'd expect, solid links, solid end links, screw pins to adjust. Yes, screw pins to adjust, with the Cadisen name engraved on the clasp. And I can't tell you if the consistency is the same on all other on all other bracelets, but you know, QC isn't the smoothest thing or the most consistent thing on AliExpress, and I think this is the main problem that all AliExpress watches have. And the funny thing is that if this particular bracelet is not good enough, you can go on AliExpress, spend another $12, $14, $15, and you can buy the same clasp, because I'm sure it's coming from the same factory somewhere else, and you can swap it. But This particular one doesn't have any issues, or actually better yet, if you're not happy with the bracelet, you can swap it for a strap, because this thing will look good on a strap. Now, this genuinely brings me back to the old days when I used to get really excited about a bargain. So I think I'm getting overexcited here for everything, when we used to buy watches from Gear Best. But okay, let's just move on. So what are my final conclusions here, guys? Well, in case I didn't mention it, it's still $76. So I will try and put another list of specs here. So we have sapphire crystal, a decent bracelet and a clasp, Seiko NH35. We have stated water resistance of 100 meters. We have a screw down crown that gives you that stated water resistance, and also it looks very similar to a watch that everybody knows, but not quite. So in that case, I think you'd be mad not to buy this watch. I think now if you go on for under $100, you can probably buy the one with the high beat Mayota, the 9015, which again, crazy value for money. Now, I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. That was my review of the Cadisen. Please click like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. So links down below to the affiliate links down below to the AliExpress watch store. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.